World-renowned philosopher Jordan Belfort once said, "I'm not effing leaving." Psychos and sickos unite for the second PHNX Suns of the day, but a non-breaking news edition. I'm Eric, that's Steven, that's Gerald, Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen for the most important people, of course, all of you in the chat, and of course, listening on audio. We appreciate all of you so much. Hit that like button. Like goal, as always, is 125, and we have a lot to go over today. The meat of this show is going to be Steven and I tiering what the Suns can learn from NBA playoff teams. We're going to talk about Gambo's report about Josh Bartelstein remaining the CEO of the Suns. But Gerald, you were in the middle of writing, and you were taking a couple minutes to share some reporting with us on what you've learned about, of course, the hire the Phoenix Suns made this morning, internally promoting Brian Gregory to GM. James Jones has transitioned to a senior advisory role. What did you learn in the past hour since our breaking news pod?
Yeah, so I spoke with a Suns source, and obviously it's coming from the Suns side of things, so take all of this with however large a grain of salt as you want. But in terms of the Brian Gregory hire, I did get some clarification on this, because in the press release it said he had been with the Suns since 2023, but he was only officially hired by the Suns as VP of Player Programming in 2024. That first year, from 2023 to 2024, he served as a consultant, so he was around the team, he was around practices, he interacted with Frank Vogel on the regular. So he does have about 2 years of NBA experience. I know that that's not much more than one, but just wanted to get some clarification on that out there. In terms of the reason that he was hired, the feeling that I've gotten from the Suns organization is that he was kind of the no-brainer, obvious choice for them. The Suns did look at somewhere between 5 and 10 external and internal candidates, whether that was formally or informally. But a lot of people within the Suns would have probably told you that Brian Gregory was the guy that was going to be put in this position. Again, very limited NBA executive or coaching experience, but he has been around the game quite a bit. There's obviously the Michigan State connection that everyone is going to talk about there. But for the Suns, it was mostly about the leadership qualities that he possessed and wanting those in that role. And then when you combine that with the hiring of Taliaferro, of Austin Paul Rivers.
Oh, thank God.
Very different Rivers.
As long as it's not Doc.
When you combine that with Paul Rivers and Taliaferro, the emphasis seems to be not just on drafting, but on player development, on putting youth around Devin Booker, on finding undrafted talent or younger players that they can grow, that they can develop. Ishbia talked at exit interviews about how they wanted their team to be hungrier again. They wanted guys to come in with the mentality of getting better every day, and they believed that these hires would help them in that regard. Paul Rivers actually worked for, I think, about 9 years under Sam Presti at OKC, so he's got plenty of experience there. Obviously, Taliaferro, as we hit on in our emergency pod, has a lot of experience, about 15 years of experience as a draft scout. He was the Suns' lead draft scout last year. So just wanted to provide some background there. I think for James Jones's role, that senior advisory role, it's going to be a little bit more from afar. He's not going to be as directly involved. And we know Josh Bartelstein is still in his role as CEO, but his focuses are probably going to be less on the basketball ops side of things and more so on the business side, the Mercury side moving forward. So just wanted to give a couple of tidbits that I found on that front. The Suns did look at several other candidates. It wasn't just a shoe-in for Gregory without, considering their different options. But that's pretty much what I've got.
Okay, so thank you for updating all of us on some more details on what happened in that department. We're, of course, going to be diving into the Josh Bartelstein still being on as CEO. Last thing I'll ask of you before we let you go, continuing to type away, do you have any thoughts about Josh Bartelstein continuing to be in his position for the Suns?
Yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world. I know people are going to disagree on that, but if you believe that he's the one pulling the strings on the draft side of things, on the player personnel and trades and all these other decisions, the basketball side of things, his role is going to be reduced. It's going to be lesser. It's going to be more business oriented moving forward, I think. So I think that if you're a Suns fan, that's probably music to your ears. I'm sure a lot of people wanted firings. They wanted, they're out for blood right now after the season that the Suns have had. But I don't think he's going to be involved on that front. And the last thing that I did have, I forgot to mention this, as far as the coaching search is concerned, now that Gregory is in place, the coaching search begins in earnest, kind of like we were saying, figure out the front office, go to the coaching search. It's probably going to be a younger or a first-time head coach. Someone who aligns with the Suns' vision, and probably not going to be any retreads. So I know people have been speculating about, Mike Brown or like Doc Rivers if he happens to get fired. The Suns probably aren't going to give those guys a serious look. They are going to be pulling from somewhere, 13, 14, 15 coaching candidates and then narrow it down from there. But just wanted to give everyone an idea of what to expect on the coaching front. It's probably going to be someone younger, someone newer, kind of the fresh blood that I'm sure a lot of people were hoping for from the GM position as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Gerald. We appreciate you. Steven and I will take it from here. Of course, you'll be able to find Gerald's writing that he's working so hard on with all the reporting and even more details than he was able to share with us today at gophnx.com. Of course, become a diehard and unlock all of his writing for the rest of eternity. That's right. Become a diehard and always get access to Gerald Bourguet. Steven, hi. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm here. What up?
That's
What's going on?
what I like to hear, man. Okay, before we get into the Bartelstein stuff, Gerald just threw a lot at us there.
Mhm.
How are you feeling now that we have some more context? Brian Gregory was the guy. Everybody will tell you that he's the guy, what the focus is on going forward. How are you feeling now that we've had some time to digest today's news?
I mean, it's dope to see things starting to take place. We'll wait for the dust to settle and for decisions to be made to start assessing these decisions made. But everything sounds good. It's time to put action to words and action to appointing of positions. It's time to start seeing the results. So per all the reports that we've heard and seen all earlier today, that is the domino that's setting off the rest of the decision making. So let's get to it.
Yeah, I am excited only to see what happens. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm excited about this move. Obviously, if
I don't
you want...
there's not really a way to get excited.
I don't know how you could be
Myers,
excited.
I guess, but
Bob Myers, I think, would be the only move that would elicit just... Honestly, people would still have a problem with it because of some of the mistakes that Bob Myers has made.
Yeah.
But I think it's really the only way that people would feel some sort of overwhelmingly positive emotion. I think Mark in the chat said he's worried that they're trying to do the exact opposite of this year, and that is lean into the player development side of things. Worried about an overreaction and going full blue collar and abandoning skill players. Is there a worry for you that this Suns franchise will just swing too far in one direction or the other and not find some sort of balance?
No, because I feel like based off of the coaches that they're going to be considering for this this next iteration of the team, I don't think that coach is going to allow for things to sway too heavily in one direction or the other, especially if it's a couple of the coaches that we've been speaking to, because those coaches strike the balance of understanding the need for youth and to be investing internally in specific types of players to continue on whatever culture and whatever style of play that the coach is desiring. But the other big thing in all of that also continues to be being able to play well in the now. You can't get caught in limbo looking forward and trying to invest in the future if your desire is to retool and still win in the now in some capacity. So
Yeah.
I feel like the head coach that they end up hiring and settling on is going to help to better balance those things and bring up an opinion and perspective that's going to help to kind of counterbalance the forward-thinking GM that they have in place now.
Yep, couple of super chats that we have here. Let's get to one from Psycho Blue. Thank you so much, Psycho Blue. $4.99 super chat. Says, B-Ball Cthulhu says, if Dan Bickley hates it, everyone should embrace this move. Bring on the draft. Psycho Blue also said earlier that PHNX hates this move, which means that it's going to end up being good. I will say there is something funny to where we've spent the last couple of years, or at least I have, really getting behind a lot of these moves moves that the Suns and Matt Ishbia have done, not from a blind faith sort of sense, but on paper, a lot of these moves have made sense. You hire Frank Vogel, you hire Mike Budenholzer, you trade for Kevin Durant, you trade for Bradley Beal. These are things that overwhelmingly a majority of people were happy with when they happened, Steven. And then, of course, we are where we are. So there is something to be said of Matt Ishbia kind of going in a different direction, not doing what's universally beloved or thought to be right, and maybe expecting a different outcome. The reality is we just don't know.
Excluding the Durant side of all of the names that you just mentioned, I feel like that's why if you're learning, you have to shift the way that you're valuing or assessing things going forward. It can't just be because of the name and what may have preceded that name before that name is being brought into whatever situation that you either have rooting interest in or that you have desires for. Again, that's excluding Kevin Durant because he's done everything that his name and everything that preceded him suggested that he would, and probably honestly did a little bit more than maybe anticipated or expected with that. But those other three names, Vogel, Budenholzer, Beal, all were elites at what they did prior to their time coming into the Suns. And then coming to the Suns, mediocre at best is what you could say for all three comprehensively.
Yeah, I agree. Super chat from my dad. $4.99 super chat.
You gotta say what up to your pops.
What up,
I'm just
Dad?
gonna say something from my dad and
From
just
my
jump
dad.
into it.
From my dad.
They're disrespect.
Listen,
man. That's
I
crazy.
treat everybody equally.
I can't tell. You
Okay.
be telling other people what up, and I'm glad to
What do
see
you
you.
mean? I
And
be
this
saying
is
what up to my
this
dad?
is the
What are you
15
talking-
super chat.
Bro,
and
stop
then
trying to
his
put me
dad.
on blast.
And then it's his dad.
Why are you
Oh, it's
trying to
my
put me on
dad.
blast?
Oh,
What's
it's my
going on
dad.
here?
Man ain't say hi
What's
or
going on
nothing.
here?
That's crazy. I'll say hi. Hi, Mr. Ruby. How
No,
you doing?
yeah,
I'm
you
glad
know
you're
what?
tapping
Maybe
in
he'll
with us
adopt
today.
you instead, and he's just gonna get rid of me. Say bye, Eric. You didn't give me enough love on my super chat.
Well, he didn't raise me, but I'm sure I'm responding the way he would expect.
Oh my
his child
god,
to raise
that's
him.
crazy.
That's insane. A
End the
response
show.
from you. That's
End the
insane.
show. End the show. $4.99 super chat from my wonderful, amazing dear
There
father.
you go. I had to check
Thank
you a
you.
little bit.
Thank
It's
you.
cool.
Thank you for the support.
I got you, Mr. Jeff.
Says reverse engineer this. Younger coach and leaders could be a real positive. Go with youth. Mark follows up and says this guy's not young. He's 60, but his speciality seems to come in being tapped in with the youth, of course, being a college coach. And just because you're, my dad says, wait, does Mr. Ruby own PHNX? My dad says, you tell him, Steven. Come on, man.
That's right.
Come on, man. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Love you, Dad. This guy's focus is youth, but that doesn't mean that it's only going to be on drafting or on rebuilding. You still need good young players and young development of players to pair with Devin Booker or whoever you have as the stars on this team moving forward. So that can go forward. Oh, my dad is funny. My dad's a funny guy. Anyway.
Apple fell right under the tree.
Anyway, what do you think about that?
I'm all for a kind of refreshed lens and a refreshed perspective on where the team should be going around Devin Booker going forward. I think that I've kind of been saying it for a while, but the team is in need of modern philosophies in terms of an approach, modern philosophies in terms of how they're going to go about communicating, the culture that they're looking to establish. If you're going to be aligning with where things are and where things are headed, you have to start to have pieces in place that align with that in terms of like a sign of the times, if you will. I look at it no different than with college coaches and the way that some of the long-standing coaches have seen success. They're not doing things the same way that they did 20, 30 years ago. You have to adapt or die. And in that same sense has to come into the Suns context. If you don't continue to adapt, teams are playing with double bigs now. Teams are playing with 5-out spacing. Teams are switching everything. Teams are cross-matching. Teams are going outside the box to make adjustments to see what sticks over the course of 82 games, implementing that, and then going into the playoffs in respect to the roster that they have. If you're not going through, like, there's a ton of other things, but if you're not going through these types of ways in which you're going about, like, building your team going forward, it's not going to hit the way that you need to. You can't do you can't do things the way that they were done even in 2021.
Yeah.
And I think this season was probably as much of an example of anything as that.
And Mark points that out in the chat as well. Thanks to Mark, my dad, Tony, Justin, Pete, everybody hanging out in the chat with us here on a Thursday afternoon for the second time. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Help PHNX reach 48,000 subscribers. One thing that I want to hit before we get to a break is the Josh Bartelstein side of things, of course, being retained as CEO. How do you feel about that?
I'm not moving one direction or the other. I didn't feel like he was like the biggest culprit in everything. Could his job have been done better? Absolutely. No one was absolved of that. I think we pretty much went through that as much as possible as far as speaking to specifics within that. But his verdict, it just remains to be seen with him too, because his job wasn't done well this season.
No.
So same thing with Matt, same thing with James, even though he's in a different role. Josh in his role, everybody has to do their job better. And I feel like just shifting, playing the musical chairs is only going to hit as much as the willingness to adjust and adapt is going to.
Yeah. We don't really know what Josh Bartelstein really would have failed at last year.
Right.
Obviously, everybody assumes that he has some sort of role in the front office moves and the basketball operation side of things. And I'm not going to sit here and deny that or say that he was running the show or that he was second in command or anything like that. I would assume he had some sort of involvement, right? But we don't know exactly what he did wrong now as the CEO and as somebody who could focus on the business side of things from the Mercury perspective, from the Valley Suns perspective, from a Phoenix Suns perspective. I would say a lot of off the court stuff when it comes to money, financials, investment, and all three of those categories. If that was Josh Bartelstein, I think he did a good job.
Did an amazing job.
And I think he did a job that, you know, sometimes it felt like layups because the past ownership group did so many bricks from layup range, like I did when I rolled my ankle shooting around in the park last night. I'm still here though, no PTO for me. So it felt like easy layups for them to hit from a front office managerial perspective on the money side of things.
I'll interrupt real quick though. Layups are dope. You still have to make them though.
No, 100%. And I think that's why you have to give him credit. And that's how I felt when Ishbia came in and was doing all like the just revamping a lot of these outside of on-court basketball things, the $2 hot dogs, the giving free antennas, things that are layups, but a lot of owners don't do.
Sure.
The thing is, with Bartelstein, if he was heavily involved in the basketball operations side of things, I'm glad that there is now somebody who clearly, and in this report from Gambo that says Bartelstein remains a CEO, it says that that new GM is reporting directly to Ishbia, not at all to Bartelstein or anything, and we didn't know the power dynamic between Bartelstein and Jones. I'm glad that there is a clear number one basketball decision maker. And if Bartelstein does have any influence in basketball operations, it will not usurp the guy who has been hired to do that.
Yep. And I think that cleaning up of channels of communication is as important as anything. Like we talked about pretty much all season, we never really understood what the channels of communication were. If person X says this, does person Y's opinion trump that? Or is it equal? Or is X over Y? And we didn't know. And obviously we also weren't, some people weren't understanding of what Ishbia's say-so in it all was either. So that streamline of communication from general manager to owner is as straightforward in a channel as can be. And I feel like that kind of reorganization of the communication channels is going to do them well going forward.
Yeah, and again, we still have to get those things right as a franchise. If I'm Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory and saying, okay, the order of operations is established, but you still got to solve the equation correctly, and it's a pretty complicated one. Of course, there are the reports that have been surfacing over the last couple of weeks about how Josh Bartelstein has been the main decision maker on things, and you can see the kind of shift in how the Phoenix Suns front office operated from a transactional standpoint when it came to basketball moves when Ishbia and Bartelstein came in and then retained James Jones. So I wonder who's going to have more influence now, if Bartelstein's not going to have any basketball influence or if him and James Jones's voices will still be heard. But we're not going to know specifically unless it gets to a point a year from now where there's another report saying Ishbia and Bartelstein are controlling a block, whatever. But nobody's in the room. Like we don't know.
Exactly.
You know, so.
And I won't attempt to speak on things that I'm not in the know about.
I always will. So, no, any final thoughts on Bartelstein being retained, Brian Gregory being promoted, James Jones being a senior advisor? Of course, things that we talked about in our breaking news pod, but wanted to touch on here as well.
Nothing new. I just urge people to kind of take a step back from maybe reacting too quickly to things. Allow for the dust to settle and allow for things to start to take place, to see if you can piece together or if you understand what the vision is that they're trying to execute upon. and then allow for the execution or lack thereof of process within all of that to then allow for you to decide, okay, I like this or okay, I don't like it. To have some type of context because everybody's just kind of speaking off of just arbitrary names.
Yeah.
And we don't know, what the plan is, yet alone how they're going to go about executing that, what external names might be involved with things, whether that be more front office people or literal players on the roster. There's a lot of ambiguity around this team. I feel like there's too much to be so reactionary to a front office move that's not going to be playing 25, 30 minutes and needing to shoot 50, 40, 90 around Devin Booker or catch alley-oops
Hey, you never
or
know.
be able to switch out on the perimeter and guard guards. Like,
You never know.
Yeah, remains to be seen.
I will say, we didn't mention this in the breaking news pod. Brian Gregory did play basketball.
And Spartan Dogs cut different. So.
He didn't play at MSU. He coached
For
there,
sure.
but he did play
For
basketball. Okay. We've covered all of that. Of course, we will continue our coverage of all of this. Any new things that Gerald learns, whatever we need to take away from his article that you definitely need to read over on gophnx.com as soon as he's done writing that. We'll cover that tomorrow. As for today, we did have a show planned about tiering what the Phoenix Suns can learn from current playoff teams. We've taken one lesson from all 16 teams. We will tier them in terms of importance that the Suns learn from that, and we're going to do it all right after this break. The Suns might start all over, tear it all down, and if you're doing that to your home, you gotta build it up from the flooring. And if you're building it up from the flooring, you know you gotta hit up Empire Today, because Empire Today is the best place to go for new flooring, not just because they're gonna hold your hand throughout the process and make sure that you pick the right flooring that matches your walls, your furniture, your cabinetry, your house style, whatever it is. They're flooring experts, freaks, psychos, just like you are with the Phoenix Suns. They are that way with flooring, and they're not going to leave you overwhelmed by those big box stores. No, they're going to be there for you. You get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. You don't have to wait like we have to wait for the new Phoenix Suns head coach. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better off at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 off discount when using promo code PHNX. That's right, $350 off discount when you use promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHNX for more details. I'm getting low on gas. I filled up last week on Circle K Inner Circle member days. Brother, I moved. I'm driving. I am driving a lot. And I get good gas mileage, but that doesn't mean that when I fill up, it doesn't cost me a lot, which is why I'm so grateful to be a member of the Circle K Inner Circle. Last week, literally a week ago, I saved 40 cents off per gallon because it was an Inner Circle fuel day. And of course, I can save every day beyond that. If you are not a member of the Inner Circle yet, you sign up, get 25 cents off your first 5 fill-ups. 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. After that, save 3 cents off per gallon every day. That eventually bumps up to 5 cents off per gallon. Plus, plenty of other member-exclusive deals and discounts. I recently got my favorite sports drink at a discounted price, basically 50% off, because I was a member of the Inner Circle. So join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details.
You know what else is dope about Circle K?
Tell me.
There's one on every other block.
It's so everywhere.
Not having to waste gas or use gas to get gas.
That's big brain.
Relevant.
I moved
It's called efficiency.
from the place that I was at. I had a Circle K right next to me.
Yep.
And then I moved, and now I got a Circle K even closer to me.
See,
literally on the
that's
corner.
how that works.
And I could tell people I live right next to a Circle K, and nobody knows where I live because everybody
Also
lives next to a Circle
very
K.
relevant. You don't need all of that undisclosed information from us.
100%. Now,
For sure.
Steven, earlier in the show, you kind of big bro'd me when we were talking about my dad.
No, I
you know,
didn't. I just set you straight because I was
just a little
literally-
that, and this is exactly what a big bro would
passed
do.
his spirit over to me for a solid 15 seconds.
And Steven, you know, that's why I think you'd make a great big brother with the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, which, of course, All City and PHNX here. We are so proud to be teaming up with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. Of course, a national partnership, but focused locally on impact here in the Phoenix community. It's why both of us are here. We know that this is a company that invests in its community, and so does Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. Of course, our coverage and everything of that picked up last week during the NFL draft, but we're going to be carrying it out throughout this entire year. We have some fun stuff that we are trying to put together and plan through Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. But maybe even some of you can become a big brother or a big sister to a child in need who just needs some of your time for mentorship. Some of you in the chat, I'll be honest, would scare me if you were a big brother or big sister, but there are some of you with great heads on your shoulders that I think would be amazing big brothers and big sisters. So if you want to learn more and learn about how excited we are to support mentorship that really makes a difference, you can learn more and see how to get involved at bbbs.org/allcity. That's bbbs.org/allcity.
Few things make life feel more gratifying than being able to make a kid smile through
Facts.
like a tough time. And those are the things that really help to shape and kind of give some idea of where a kid might want to be when they get to our age and even older than us. So
Think about how sad the Phoenix Suns made so many kids this year. You can help counter that. And not to put the onus on you, but it is possible. Now, Steven, I don't know if you knew this, but the Suns missed the playoffs.
really,
They actually missed the play-in.
Mm.
Not good, right?
if you told me that 5 months ago, I would say you sound crazy.
5 months ago?
5.5, okay.
I told me that like at the end of November, and I'm kind of on board. But
I didn't really get there till like mid-January.
Pete in the chat, by the way, says my wife was a big sister in that organization years ago. She really enjoyed it. I think you actually hear more positive things. Obviously, you hear a lot of positive things from the kids who are getting mentored, but all the mentors who step up walk away taking maybe more than whatever kid gets mentored. You both walk away with something.
Mhm.
But the Suns have a lot they need to work on. And when I was watching playoff basketball, you can let me know if you felt the same. It was almost immediate to see how basically every single team had this gear, had something that the Suns were just missing.
Yep, different levels. And
Different
that's
levels.
what makes the playoff season completely different from the 82-game marathon.
So what we're going to do here today, and we'll probably run a little long, that's okay because we like talking ball here, is we're going to tier the biggest lesson the Suns can learn from each playoff team in terms of importance for the Suns to make the playoffs next year and in the next couple of years going forward.
And I'll preface before we even get started with not ignoring the regular season and all of these moments that we're seeing from these teams that they're implementing in the now at the highest of urgency, the highest levels, the most adverse scenarios. This is not them pulling something out of their back pocket that hasn't been discussed, that hasn't taken place, that hasn't been being implemented. These are things that they're leaning into that all also align with their principles and the ways in which they desire to operate.
Yeah. It all's tied together.
The regular season matters a whole lot for the people that, say it doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't get to where you are now with skipping steps in that process at all.
Hello in the chat says, I learned Rudy Gobert beat Luka.
Well, that's one thing you can learn.
Listen, I will say.
Rudy stayed alive on some switches. And again, you don't get to that point without trial and error throughout the regular season.
Now, this is funny because you guys weren't here, obviously, when I first got hired. But my first day when Emma was still producing the show and she was introducing me, she thought my last name was Rudy. She thought I was Eric Rudy. And so she introduced me to the show as Eric Rudy. And I think it's very funny to go full circle, and now I'm known as the Rudy Gobert Glazer. All right.
That's how that happened.
On that note.
Not our last episode.
On that note. I just said it came full circle. He was a beast, though, last night. I mean, probably the best game of his career.
It's up there. If it's
definitely
not it.
up there.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to just learn Rudy Gobert today. We're going to learn a lot. So let's go ahead and jump into this tier. What we do is we have all of the logos for the teams, and we'll tell you what the lesson that they learn is. So if you're listening on audio, you're not missing too much, but we'll still help you out. Hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe as well. If you're watching here on YouTube, let us know what you think as we go through and tier what the Suns can learn from these teams in the playoffs. Let's start it off with the Orlando Magic. Steven, what's the lesson the Suns can learn from the Orlando Magic?
That you can build, I don't think I included this, it just hit me now though, that you can build around two primary creators. Thing is though, you have to add shooting in addition to that. But when everything else aligns with the defensive end to insulate those two primary creators on offense, and they're also involved with how the defense is going to be sustained, that's a direct route to success, independent of stats and X's and O's. If you can get to where you're striking a balance with that in particular, you have avenues to success that you can navigate to in the regular season, but even more specifically come playoff time.
Yeah, I think a couple of things you can learn from the Magic. Your defensive identity. Mark adds up. Limiting threes can give you a chance the same way that hitting threes can. Of course, you've got to have a balance with both.
Yep.
And like you said also in our document here, you need the balance for the offense with the defense. I'll be honest with you, starting with the Magic, I'd have them up pretty high as far as things the Suns can learn. Defensive identity, check. Building around two creators.
A brand
check.
new breath of fresh air to the coaching room.
100%.
Obviously, a couple years removed, but
I would honestly, maybe we don't jump to S immediately. I'm fine putting Orlando in A, but I think the only reason why I'm hesitating to put them in S is because they're the first team that we're talking about.
I think you can put them on the margin for S and A.
Okay, so top of A tier for now.
Revisit once the dust is settled on everything.
I like that. I like top of A. Hello also adds drafting works as well.
With intentionality, though, not just drafting because of names, but how can this piece fit our context and where we want to go going forward?
100%. Okay, let's move on to the Denver Nuggets. What do you think the Suns could learn from the Denver Nuggets?
Well, firing the head coach. That starts everything. But independent of that, for me, I think you put this perfectly, just building around a star talent.
A singular star. Like, the thing is, if you're going through this next iteration of the Suns and Devin Booker is your guy, and you're not trying to star chase, you're not trying to pair him up with a big three. Maybe you still try to find another big two. But, there's not another all-star on the Denver Nuggets. But that team is fit. Like, Aaron Gordon's fit next to Jokic is great. Porter Jr. in theory at his peak, especially during that championship run, was great. Jamal Murray is a playoff riser. That two-man game is potent. It's great around Jokic. Just allowing him to be him, emphasizing his strengths with players around him. Mark says from the Nuggets, draft an all-time great player in the second round during a Taco Bell commercial.
That helps too.
Where would you put Denver?
I'll also say having an onus on your star player being the best player on the court. Because the way, if Jokic is 5% of an MVP or 5% less than MVP, which he might be this season, that affects Jamal Murray. That affects Michael Porter Jr. That affects Aaron Gordon. That affects Michael Malone to do his job as a coach and at least be successful. Or whoever might be in the head coaching spot for them. Obviously, Adelman now, but everybody else severely can't do their job to the extent that they desire to if he's not doing his. So there's pressure that comes with that. You got to be cut from a certain cloth to deliver.
And in a game that he doesn't, they lose.
Exactly.
You don't hear about...
The margins are much more slim. You don't have, obviously, Jamal Murray dropping 40. That's a 1B, but how consistent is he with that? Not having that 1B that's Kevin Durant or, something of that level puts a lot more onus on the number one.
Yeah, I would have Denver a little lower here because I think a lot of what they build off of is having the top one player in the world, which is Nikola Jokic. Sure. And I love Devin Booker, and some people say that I say this about Devin Booker, even though I don't. He's not a top 5 player in the world, right? And this season, he wasn't a top 10 player in the world. So I'd put Denver C. I think you want to build a good fit team, but I think you can take that from most teams here.
Yeah, I like C. I will say, though, with Adelman being an assistant, at least in the intended form of this team, having an assistant that strong with the offense that he's implemented and the ways they go about using that both with Jokic and independent of Jokic, that is a major asset. And that's something that's going to be a recurring theme from me as we talk through these other playoff teams.
Okay, let's roll with Denver at C. Here's another team that I'm fascinated by, not just in this year's playoffs, but when it comes to how they've built their team and their future prospects. The Indiana Pacers. What do you think would be the biggest lesson the Suns could learn from the Indiana Pacers?
The first 4 letters in Pacers. Pace, pace, and pace.
That makes sense.
You see, well, first of all, even before we get to the pace, you can't play with pace if you're always taking the ball out of the basket, meaning that you can't get a stop defensively. And the ways, it's the layers in the process for the Pacers defensively now. They've been fine with Miles Turner getting into switching at times in ways in which earlier this season, before they saw the defensive shift that took place after the All-Star break, would leave them in same situations that the Suns were in where, okay, we're in drop, and teams are just attacking the drop in multiple ways because it's the easiest coverage to attack. Even if you have a defensive player of the year type of player like Miles Turner. So having that shift and then being able to have multiple methods of attack defensively and literally attacking defensively, it shifts things. Now you're getting more stops. You're playing with more activity. Now you can push the pace to the point where on the rare time that you may give up a basket, you can still just take it out really quickly and get up court and get into your first action within 2.5 to 3 seconds. And the pressure that puts on a defense over the course of a series, yet alone a specific game, it leaves them susceptible to making mistakes. And now you have pieces around Tyrese Halliburton that can execute off of him, catch and shoot threes, layups, drives to the basket because the defense is shifted towards him. It all leans into it, but it starts with playing with pace that comes from being able to play off of stops more often than not.
Yeah, I think that another thing with Indiana that I really like is they have complementary top-end talent.
Yeah.
Right? They have a pass-first point guard that can spread the floor, that can help initiate those fast breaks. They have a former Tasmanian Devil on offense, now a little bit more refined and skilled, in Pascal Siakam, who can do a little bit of everything.
I think he's playing a role.
Yeah, a center who can stretch it out, but also score inside, play good defense as well. And then a bunch of other role players that, when they're defined in their correct roles, they step up in the playoffs. So I think Indiana's good. I don't know how high, though. Are you going to put them below the Magic? Because I think Mark also had a good point in the chat saying you don't want to take too much from Orlando, though, considering that they weren't the best team this year. But I think a lot of what Orlando's strengths would fall into Suns' weaknesses, which is why I have them higher. So would you put them in the realm of Orlando, over, under?
I would probably put them right in the middle of Orlando and Denver.
So B.
With the B. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. I'm good with B. Let's roll with B. We got a lot more to get here once we throw the Pacers in B. I want to read a super chat from a dear old friend. Gerald, you're over there writing, but guess what? Guess what, Gerald? We have a super chat from B Calm C Clearly. Wow, B Calm C Clearly is back, and Noah, so are you.
$2 from B Calm C Clearly goes, I love you, Noah. And fam, I've been hustling, missing streams. Kissy emoji. Love
Man,
you too,
glad to know you're alive. Thank you so much, B Calm C Clearly.
Take care of yourself.
Yes, take care of yourself.
We'll be here whenever you got time.
Keep hustling. We ain't going anywhere. So hit that like button if you're B Calm C Clearly, or if you're not B Calm C Clearly, hit that subscribe button as well. So far, we have the lessons from the Orlando Magic in A, Indiana Pacers in B, Denver Nuggets in C. That means we have a lot more teams to get to, Steven, and we will get to all of those teams right after our second break. Woo, I've had myself a day. Had an interview this morning for ASU, of course, got ready for our show, then breaking news, now a show here. I'm going to need to relax tonight, Steven, and I'm going to...
You relax?
Well, only when I'm able to take a pure edible gummy. Of course, founded in Arizona, available in 130 dispensaries statewide, a full-fledged candy company, so it tastes good. It doesn't taste like edibles, but they sure make you feel like edibles. But you know exactly how you're going to feel. That's why they have it clearly listed on the tin. It's not just sativa, indica, hybrid, which is great, but you don't know how those things are going to make you feel, or specific combinations of CBN, CBG, CBD, THC. And that's what Pure Edibles does, is they say, hey, this is going to make you sleepy. This is going to make you uplifted, relaxed, blissful, balanced. Whatever it is, it's clearly listed on the tin. Plus, Pure Gummies are designed to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable or easy to dial in your exact dose. So go find yourself some Pure Edibles like I will when I get home tonight from one of the over 130 dispensaries across the great state of Arizona. And of course, Brandon Bills has been a partner for a long time now. Of course, sponsor of PHNX's Southwest Bias with Espo. But of course, a hat that I personally rep all the time now. I've been playing a lot of basketball outdoors. It's where I rolled my ankle pretty bad last night, and I hate to say I was wearing a Brandon Bills hat. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. I'm wearing the Brandon Bills hats to keep the hair out of my eyes, and Brandon Bills has the perfect blend of performance and style. Whether you're playing basketball like me, you're on a show like me, you're going around every day like you are, Brandon Bills should be the hat that you're rocking. Truckers fitted beanies, tees, and snapbacks, plus so much more, and you can customize it just like we have with our own PHNX branded merch as well. The best part is new code for BrandonBills.com, but same 20% off the first order. That's BBPHNX. Head to BrandonBills.com. Use code BBPHNX for 20% off your first order. Again, shout out to everybody in the chat, including Pete, who asked if my dad agrees with my last promotional message. Thon, who says that my ankle injury sucks. Yes, it does, and it was all my fault because I was just shooting around and went in for the lefty layup, which, hey, I got both hands. I'm just saying. I don't say the lefty stuff for no reason. Up with the left and uneven concrete on the outdoor court.
Tough.
And,
Tough.
I've torn ligaments in my ankles, and I had that second where I was like, oh, crap, did I do it again? I didn't. It just hurts. But we have another super chat. B. Calm C. Clearly is back.
He's back, and with $5 this time, he goes, Steven been looking like a snack. Show me them legs, hard eyes emoji. And you know who you are. KD is not better than Giannis. Eye roll emoji. Giannis got some nice cake, by the way. KD don't. Crying emoji.
You know what, man? I missed you, Be Calm. Man, I missed you. Please keep jumping in whenever you can. I know you're hustling. So we will keep going. Corey says, I missed who the hell the new GM is. Go check out our breaking news pod. You probably aren't going to be happy. Lessons that the Phoenix Suns can learn from playoff teams. One of the most fun playoff teams, of course, the official playoff team of PHNX Suns because of our producer and because of the fun in it. The Detroit Pistons. What can the Suns learn from the Detroit Pistons, Steven?
Well, it starts with being able to build around the star talent, for one. Being able to draft around the star talent and bring in win-now type of players. You think about them having Jalen Durant to go with, obviously, Cade Cunningham. But also the Pistons going and getting a player like Malik Beasley. Going and finding shooting to go to the defensive context that they built around him. And obviously Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. Those are two premier elite level snipers that can kind of go off script and not just be shooters. They can put the ball in the deck at times. They're not negatives on the defensive end. They might not be the best defenders, but they can get to an average level and defend in a scheme for you. And then Tobias Harris on top of all of that. Player can go off script scoring, can space it and shoot for you. Can go and guard Karl Anthony Towns in a series to shifting so that your centers can stay more around the basket, provide rim protection and grab rebounds. Little things like that. Going and finding Dennis Schroeder at the trade deadline. Another veteran piece that's all going around Cade Cunningham, bringing energy, bringing different things, and now look at where they are shining on the playoff stage.
Yeah, Tony adds, hustle, hello, says, fire Monty early and not hold on to him when it's too late. You know I'm right.
Also, JB Bickerstaff, we got to shout out JB again. We talked about him last week as a coach that got fired. Might not necessarily have been his fault, but they felt like they needed to go a different direction. Comes back the next season and immediately puts a stamp on things. One of the most historic turnarounds on the season by season.
Yeah, Mark in the chat kind of echoing what I was thinking, which is Cade is a similar player to Book. Obviously, Cade drives more. I was thinking this when Cade was kind of coming on in the playoffs. I got lots of shades of, wow, this is kind of how Book did it as well. The Book was shooting more threes in his first playoff runs. His Pistons are an interesting team when you try to think about what a 4 to 6 seed around Book as the only star might look at, balancing that youth with the vets, having one. Here's what white people love to say about basketball: heliocentric star that's going to have the ball in his hands. But here's the thing: JB is an NBA retread, right? You know, he's somebody who's been coaching. The Suns are looking for a new coach, so that is maybe something that they could try to learn as well. I do love what the Pistons have and that blend of youth and veteran talent.
Didn't mention Asar. I want to make sure you mention that name too.
Yeah, Asar Thompson. Obviously, Ivy's not playing right now. I would still consider Isaiah Stewart on the younger end, Jalen Durant on the younger end as well. But defense, grit, hustle, and balance. I would say I'd probably put Detroit in a similar realm as Indiana, especially for the future iterations of the Suns, which are probably going to be very Book-centric.
I'm not mad at it.
What Noah is giving me a stink face. You'd put him in S.
Yeah, without a doubt. The best team in the NBA.
I love
Wouldn't
you.
expect another answer but that.
B. Comc clearly is back. So before we rank the Pistons, Noah, why don't you do your second job, which is read their super chats?
Okie dokie. Become C clearly $5 super chat says, disappointing season aside, Booker is always and will always be special to Suns fans, and he also knows how to keep his something in his pants. It's 14 inches long.
I love watching Noah read them in real time. Tony says, good Lord. You know, Become Secretly has been gone for a while, so they're just kind of catching up. Mark says, both the Pistons and Magic are showing that shooting and efficiency might be a bit overrated. I don't know about overrated, but I think that you don't need to be Boston Celtics level of 3-point dominance if it's not paired with a level of defensive dominance as well.
Yeah, that part specifically is relevant. Offense is important, but defense and rebounding are what win championships and what shine through more postseason play. Look at the scoring outbursts. There haven't been that many in this first round.
Yeah, at all.
These games have been played relatively under like 110, 111.
All the close games, especially too. There's been a couple games that have been blowouts where one team will get to 120-ish and the other team is way far behind. But any competitive game is very low scoring.
Yep. So scoring on the margins comes to the forefront come playoff time, but that overall dominant 120, getting up 45 threes a game, it's a lot harder to do that in the 16-game season that is the postseason.
Okay, so above Indiana or below Orlando, we could put them in A. I wouldn't mind putting them in A.
A is fine.
Okay, end of
I'm
A.
fine with A.
Cool.
I like end of A. I think
top of S. Yes.
put them at the end of A now. I do really, really, really like the Cade book comparison as far as building teams around.
There's a template there for
super high on Cade going forward. How about a team that might take KD? Houston Rockets. What can you learn from them?
Defense.
All of these are defense. I think half court defense specifically, and versatility in a double big lineup, which is not something the Suns are able to employ unless Mike Budenholzer was starting Yusuf Nurkic and Mason Plumlee against the Timberwolves.
Exactly, and that's not. Needless to say, that's not it. Having layers to your defense, being able to not just play one specific style of defense, but have your defense shapeshift to keep you in a position where you're dictating to your opponents over the course of an entire game or series. They have a saying with the Rockets where they don't want teams to be making plays. They don't want teams to be scoring off of plays. They want players to make plays. So if you have a play that you have drawn up, they're going to take away the things that the player is going to want to create. They're going to force the players to make plays, whether that be isolation, cycling through multiple plays before getting to something else. They want it to go off script rather than being a scripted manner. And I think that's a template that the Suns can certainly build around. It might be something that the Suns could literally take away from Houston in terms of players.
Yeah, literally, you can get some of what they've
and
built.
Potentially coach as well.
As an identity. What do you think their defensive style as far as what the Suns are able to change about theirs? Because if you're looking at Orlando and you're looking at Detroit and even Indiana a little bit, but less so, it's defense. Which type of defense do you think the Suns have an easier chance of emulating for this next season? Is it the Houston style defensive increase, an Orlando style, a Detroit style?
It would be Detroit style for me.
Okay.
Because with Orlando, their two best players are known for their offense, but are far from slouches on the defensive end. That's a lot harder to come by, especially when Devin Booker is going to be the piece you're building around. I'm saying this as if he's short, but he's only 6'4", 6'5". Paolo's 6'7", or Paolo's 6'8", 6'9", and Franz is 6'7", 6'8", with a plus wingspan. So that as a template helps to make your defense easier to build around. With Houston, they have Amen Thompson, generational defensive prospect that's in his, second or third year? Second year, I believe. And in addition to that, you have players like Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr. That's a different level of defense you can get to with that group. It's more individual in addition to scheme with them. I think the Suns can get to what the Pistons have more than what the Magic or Rockets have defensively.
Okay, so do we want to put the Rockets at the top of B then, considering it's not as replicable, or do you feel higher?
I put them in A behind Orlando.
A behind Orlando, so ahead of Detroit.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll rock with you on that one. I don't have super strong opinions on that. We got, excuse me, so far for audio listeners, in A, we have lessons from the Magic, the Rockets, and the Pistons. In B, we have the Pacers. And in C, we have the Denver Nuggets. Before we continue here, we do have another super chat from Justin. Justin with a $10 super chat says, Ishbia watched semi-pro one time, saw one person being the owner, GM, coach, and player, and said, bet. Only started the mortgage company as a way to fund the pursuit of his Jackie Moon dream.
You said some things in there.
Listen, let me phrase this the right way. Obviously, I think that is funny, and I think it's an over exaggeration for sure. But I don't blame fans for thinking this way. I don't think Matt Ishbia gives a crap at this point. I think he's just going to do what he wants to do.
No, should he?
But this is why you have to nail this. This is why you have to nail the GM hire. This is why you have to nail the head coaching hire. And this is why you need to turn this crap around. Because this is exactly what your fan base is going to think of you if you don't. And I think he understands that. I don't know if it necessarily causes him to lose sleep at night, but I think it does give some sort of push and motivation to figure this out if they were not already extremely motivated. But thank you so much for your super chat here,
appreciate you, Justin.
We very much appreciate it. Let's keep it rolling. OKC, this one's very obvious to me. It's the aura. How can you get aura like Shea's? You know, how can you get that S tier aura, right? I'm just kidding. I think obviously the first thing that's coming to mind is defense, as we've been saying. I think more importantly than that is team identity.
Yep. And it starts with the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get to the players next because the players are important in that. But look at where Mark Daigneault came from, the G League, and a developmental background more than anything else. And then obviously he gets to the league, and now he's been given the runway to go off script and not be traditional in his methods to approach to a game. Whether he's starting 5 smalls because he doesn't have a center that's really available, or the ways in which he goes about using his 5s to manipulate matchups and things like that. Those things are extremely valuable, but you have to be given a green light to not have to look over your shoulder and say, oh man, the head coach is all over, or the front office is all over us because we might not be doing things in a traditional way. You have to be given a green light to do that. He's been given that, and you see where that's gotten them.
Yeah, I agree. I think we do have a clip here from Steve Nash and Cam Johnson talking with Tommy Alter on the Young Man and the Three, talking about Oklahoma City's identity and how that's so impactful.
Is it an organizational thing? Is it a Shea thing? Like, where does it come from?
All of the above. Having a leader that empowers his teammates, that is like a good teammate, a good dude, wants to see them do well, shares in their success, but also takes on the responsibility. That's a key component. But the culture, like, what is culture? Culture is like, it's a system of behaviors. It's how we behave. To me, like, you can have the best culture ever on paper. It's who do you bring in your building, and they recruit and scout high IQ, hardworking, collaborative players, right? That's why they went out and got Caruso. That's why they drafted Cason Wallace, Wiggins, like these type of players. They understand these guys have worked for everything they got. They will continue to work. They're happy to fit into a system, but they still have the competitive fire. So that's organizational. It's not like, hey man, we created this great culture. No. They filled the room with people that want to fight together, were willing to play with the team, play as a team, to sacrifice for each other, to compete, and then it builds itself, right? Like it's not the word, or it's not the thought exercise on the wall. It's not the messages around the gym. It's who do you bring into your building? That's what a culture is. More than anything.
Is it an organizational thing?
So in addition to everything that Steve Nash just said extremely well, there's a quote from Red Auerbach, legendary coach, legendary Boston Celtics coach, where he spoke to him having a culture and all these things he wanted to have implemented, but it was the players that were the ones that upheld the disciplines that they wanted to stay in alignment with that culture, and to also help the younger players like Bob Cousy, et cetera, that they might be bringing in at that time to fall in alignment there. That's where the culture breeds culture, and it continues that process. It doesn't just stop at the head coach or stop at the best players. Everybody picks up that baton respectively.
S tier for me.
For sure.
This is the easiest one.
For
S
sure.
tier for me. Culture, identity, every single person buying in. OKC has done it the right way and has walked the tightrope of competing now, and of course, going for the future as well with their draft picks. Minnesota Timberwolves. What can we learn from the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Coaches adjusting in the playoffs. Having a coach that can do that, having a coach that does that in real time and seeing the immediate results. Anthony Edwards and all of his playmaking greatness showed on display in the first round was excellent. But look at the ways in which Chris Finch and company adjusted over the course of the series, the way that they're spacing around Ant, shape-shifted. Okay, the Lakers are double-teaming him every time. Are we going to keep the same spacing templates, or are we going to shift the court around him to put them in compromise in different ways that's going to help him be successful attacking that, but also help him and his teammates be successful with the passes that he does make out of that? Talked about it all season with the Suns. Devin Booker got to stop turning the ball over, and he's talked about the spacing. Look at the ways that Minnesota's adjusted there, and look at the way that the Suns did not over the course of this season.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people who didn't love the Julius Randle trade, right? But they found different ways to make different types of players fit around Anthony Edwards, right? And so I think that's also really important. I'd put Minnesota, the adjustments and everything. Where would you put them?
Because it's Ant-centric, I would put them in the second tier.
Okay, above, below Orlando?
I would put them after Houston.
After Houston, okay. So right now we have 4 teams that the Suns can learn lessons from in the A tier. But up top we have OKC. Then it goes to, in the A tier, Orlando, Houston, Minnesota, Detroit. In the B tier, it's Indiana. In the C tier, it's Denver. How about the Golden State Warriors? How about being able to trade for Jimmy Butler? That's something that you could learn.
That helps for sure. It was 2 things for me. One, drafting with intention. They're going to get quit in post. They know that their offense, they know that the system that Steve Kerr has thrives with the 5-out center. Gets them that, comes on late in the season, and now he's an impact player in the rotation. Other thing is assistant coaches being employed to do what they do best. They bring in Jerry Stackhouse. He shifts their defense. They also go and add Jimmy Butler in addition to that. And now you look at the results that they've been getting. They've been the best team in the league defensively since they got Jimmy Butler. That's not by happenstance.
I agree. Mark says from the Warriors, you can contend even being undersized if you get guys with effort. I think team culture, team identity. I don't put it as high as OKC because they are coming from a place of continuing a dynasty type culture from the last 10 years instead of establishing something new. The Suns are more focused on establishing something new instead of taking advantage of the end of careers of guys like Steph and Draymond. I would probably have them B or C tier. Where would you put them?
C tier is cool with me.
I would put them above Denver though.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree with that part.
So top of C tier for Golden State. Let's continue here with
also unconventional thinking can be something that is an advantage for you. Lots of zone defense from the Warriors against the Rockets in this playoff series.
And really only one true offensive engine when it comes to scoring, and that's Devin Booker. Butler can do it in certain respects, but
It's
true
different.
offensive engine, it's Steph. So you can learn a little from that the same way Denver does with Nikola, even though it's a little different with those two. Los Angeles Lakers, recently eliminated, by the way. Eat crap, LaDoncic. Anyways.
Anything else you want to get off your chest?
A lot, but we don't have time for it. What do you think that they can learn from the Lakers? I think being lucky with trades, having a GM that can take advantage of Nico Harrison, those are things that you could learn from the Lakers.
Finding your JJ Redick, I think it's probably the best thing that they can learn. Someone that's going to spearhead a new culture, someone that's going to implement modern philosophies, thinking outside the box, and do so in a way that's communicative. Super sharp communication. Those things should be valued most for the Suns in their head coaching search right now.
Yeah. Also, as Mark says, that center is a very important position as Jackson Hayes gets played off the court. Some of these are negative lessons, too. Like, it can't always be positive. I think what you learn from LA is you can have, and you knew this from the Suns, you can have 2 great stars. You can have 2 players that dominate your offense, that have the ball in their hands and all of that. But if the pieces around them don't fit, then... So how are we going to categorize
Somebody has
that?
to play defense.
If it's taking negative things from a team, do we put them in D tier, or is that still like a high lesson learned? Like where are we gonna?
If you think like is JJ's impact on that team this season enough where they finished outside of the playing realm or above the playing realm rather? Is that enough to trump the defensive lapses or the lack thereof that they even had in the first round?
I mean,
that's what the deciding factor is.
I don't think it was enough because you saw what happened to them in the first round. I think you learned that the coach can only do so much as well.
I also think some of that has to be included because they didn't get Mark Williams at the deadline. They were clearly trying.
Mark was tweeting about that.
Yeah, for sure. Right. They were clearly trying, but an in-depth roster at the center position was their demise, mostly at least.
Yeah. Where would you put him?
They can put him D.
Okay, I'm cool with D tier as well. If you are watching on TV, thank you so very much. But I must remind you that the party always continues over at GoPHNX.com. Which means it's time for overtime. Hit a like, hit that subscribe as well, as we are back on our tier from top to bottom. We have OKC, Orlando, Houston, Minnesota, Detroit, Indiana, Golden State, Denver, and of course the Lakers. As far as who the Suns can learn lessons from this postseason, let's go with the team with a couple former Suns in Campaign and Mikal Bridges, the New York Knicks. What can you learn from the Knicks?
Maybe some future Suns too. But it's building around your star player. They haven't had a stop at all to the extent that they want to go to build around Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns. Obviously finding a way to get Josh Hart. obviously finding a way to get Mikal Bridges. They haven't stopped trying to find ways to build around Jalen Brunson to where it's pieces that fit specifically for the playoffs. OG Anunoby more than any other piece.
Yeah. I like how they've built their team, but I think you can also learn that you can go all in with all of your picks and you still might not find the exact combination that you want, and that you need a team that can contend with the best and the teams that are very good, not just teams that are below you as well. I think this is an interesting one. I'm a little more middle of the pack when it comes to the Knicks. How you feeling about B tier?
I'll put them in C, honestly.
You put them in C?
Yeah.
Where would you put them in C?
I'll put them above the Dubs.
Okay, so top of C tier. I'm fine with top of C tier. I'm not going to argue with you on that. Hashtag Heat culture. Is that what you're learning from the Miami Heat?
There's so much to learn from Miami.
This year, though?
No, and I don't mean that in an endearing way.
Okay.
Because they're in some dire straits in many respects. Having a vision, but being able to see forward so that you don't put yourself where they are right now, is behind the 8-ball or kind of like in limbo a little bit as well. It's just they're just such a confusing team with where they're at right now. How many times are you going to make it through the play-in and then just get bounced in the first round?
Yeah.
Like, that's tough sledding and trying to build something going forward.
Yeah, and are you going to find yourself in a spot where you never go full rebuild, right? And so you never really get this high draft pick, and I like Khalil Ware. But you're stuck in this middle ground of, all right, we're going to build around Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo and try to nail everything around the margins. And then we're going to get rid of Jimmy Butler because of whatever our reasons are behind the scenes.
Yep.
And now you're a franchise that has had the luxury of not walking into, but getting some superstars, some high-level players ever since Dwayne Wade and then LeBron. And then you got a little lull, and then Jimmy Butler comes to Miami, right? And so you've had that luxury, but now you're not sitting there with that luxury anymore. And with the Suns as a team who has had the luxury of attracting high-level talent the last couple of years, they're going to have to find a way to avoid the bad part of that middle ground. But the Heat have a good coach, a good infrastructure, a good culture, winning past, championships, and an all-defensive player to build around, an all-star in Tyler Hero as well. They have a lot of these pieces that we say the Suns are missing, and they still don't have success. I think that's also a big lesson, but I'd put Miami in D.
Yeah, they're in D for sure.
I would put them below Lakers for sure. I would also do the same with Memphis Grizzlies. I think the lesson you learn is don't do dumb crap in the middle of the season, and find a staff that can keep your players healthy.
Yeah.
Also, don't give your players guns.
The culture has to evolve.
Yeah.
It can't just be dead set. It has to evolve with the times. Otherwise, it's going to end up working against you in a way that it once was an asset and advantage.
And I would also say don't abandon something that's going all right for something that you don't have fully flushed out. So don't make rash decisions in the middle of the season. I'd also have them in D tier, though.
Also, statue building.
Shout out Tony Allen. The Clippers. I'll be honest with you. Before we even get into what it is, I think the Clippers have a conversation to be S tier. Now, hear me out. Number one, how to build a team around addition by subtraction. Obviously, you lose Paul George, who's been a massive part of your team. We know how Paul George has been this year, but you're able to rebound with that. They've always had great defensive schemes, adjustments in the playoffs. They're a versatile team, but they have top-level talent. They have Kawhi Leonard. They have James Harden, who even in the playoffs, they leave a little bit to be desired with James Harden on that side of things, but they've developed internal talent like Zubats. They've gotten great 3-and-D players. They've been able to acquire some other teams' trash and made it their treasure. Like Ben Simmons is playing playoff minutes for them. I think they're S tier, personally.
Yeah, it's S tier for me. I'm glad you mentioned the roster building around two, albeit offensive-minded talents. One of those two is always aligned with the defensive end as well. His calling card was defense to get to the league in Kawhi Leonard. But also the other thing, as I mentioned earlier, assistant coaching power. Jeff Van Gundy coming in and shifting things the way that he has for them defensively to get them to the level where their offense has an impact that it needs to on the playoff stage. Very important. So that part has to be included with all of it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'd have them easily S tier for me. Like it's not even close, personally.
For sure.
All right, 3 teams
also,
left.
culture shift.
Culture shift,
because the ways in which they've shifted things from when they were with the Staples Center, or obviously Crypto Arena now, to now having their own arena, rebranding galore, changing the entire in-arena experience. All of those things matter.
I 100% agree. And Mark says, rich owner who's very passionate about basketball too. Ishbia can learn a lot from Ballmer. A team that's now on hashtag Broke Boy Watch, the Boston Celtics. Obviously, the reigning champions have a very good chance of going back-to-back this year. I think there's a lot that you could take from Boston, the three-point revolution, acquiring high amounts of star power, not being afraid to spend money as well, but still buying in on a defensive identity. They had a coaching change. They hired somebody who did not have any head coaching experience and was very young and up and coming. What do you think the biggest lesson that the Suns can take away from Boston is?
On the court, valuing the center position and thinking outside the box. And then front office-wise, having people that check off certain boxes, the analytics department, the on-the-court assessing of talent, finding a Derek White, being able to implement pieces to continue to shift the ways in which you go about playing. They don't play the same way they did, let alone even last season. They came in saying they want to shoot more threes. They came in saying they can switch more. And they can do that across multiple lineups now because of the things in the front office aligning with the court. So, finding that balance.
I think part of that comes from a glutton of riches as well, to be able to change those things. Also, having a psychopath as a head coach is a good way to go.
One that came through your program.
Where would you put them? I think this is a really interesting one.
They're a gold standard. They got to be top of the top.
You think it's S tier that you can learn from Boston? Interesting. Mark says D in terms of what you can learn. Thon says front office wise, we need way less Bartelsteins. They make good trades. They make good front office moves. They executed well on the court. They've drafted well. I mean,
but they did it their way, though.
They did it their way. I think that's completely fair. Where would you put them in S tier? I'm not opposed to S tier.
At the top of the top.
Top of the top. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I'm okay with that.
Might not be easy to copy and paste it, but you can take everything that they've done, even the lumps, and reverse engineer that and put it to your context.
Well, two teams left. One team that's still very much alive, another team that's very much dead. Let's start with the one that's alive. The Cleveland Cavaliers. What can you learn from the Cavs?
Modern philosophies. Double big, can switch 5 out, can also take those same bigs and play with 5 out principles on the offensive end. Jared Allen is not a shooter. That doesn't mean you can't space him and use him in ways that, one, play to his skill set, but two, also compromise the defense. If he's screening from certain angles or he's spaced to certain spots, that puts the opposing center in compromise because they're not just standing around the basket. And that opens up all of the driving lanes and the cutting lanes that they like to flow into. So evolve your approach, be modern, and think outside the box.
A tier?
Yes.
Where?
I'll probably put them above Orlando.
Okay. I also like Mark's been killing it as well. Like, continuity matters. I think is also a good point. Obviously they trade for Donovan Mitchell. They did the DeAndre Hunter trade this year, but their core, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Darius Garland, they built through the draft and they stayed consistent with it and they stayed to their identity.
You also cannot ignore the center position with this team as well.
No, you can't. And the versatility that those two guys can bring and the development of those players offensively as well. Milwaukee. Don't hire Doc Rivers. Don't trade for Kyle Kuzma.
You can't ignore the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah.
You also can't have a 37, 36-year-old center.
You also have to balance competing now with getting young talent and drafting that young talent because who do they have? AJ Green. AJ Green and Rollins, who's I think a free agent after this year.
Yeah, and he came on for them when Dame got hurt.
Yeah, son of Tree Rollins. No, I'm kidding. I don't think they're related.
That's it.
They might be.
They might be, but that's it.
I don't know. Yeah, they don't have a lot to bank on, and the thing is, they kind of rested on their laurels. They thought they could just get it done again, and they simply couldn't. And that's something that the Phoenix Suns can't do, and I don't see them doing either. I would put Milwaukee at the end of D tier with the way that they have fumbled the Giannis experience at this point. I mean, they know they won a championship, but right now it's tough. Yeah, especially trading Chris Middleton to get Kyle Kuzma, who just sucks.
Yep,
bad.
That's tough.
All right,
that's tough.
So here's our final tier as far as what the Suns can learn from these playoff teams. Starting at the top in S tier, we have the Boston Celtics, the Oklahoma City Thunder, of course, two of the top teams, two teams that many expect to meet in the NBA Finals and the reigning NBA champions, along, though, with the Los Angeles Clippers, who are down in their first round series, proving that you can still learn the most from some of the teams that are not atop of the NBA.
Yep.
In the A tier, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Orlando Magic, Houston Rockets, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Detroit Pistons. A common theme here is what, Steven?
Youth.
And?
New coaches.
And? Defense.
Oh, well, yeah. More than anything, all of these teams up there are defense.
All
those
of them.
first two.
Yes, but those A tier ones have a lot of their identity tied into defense. In the B tier, the only team we have in the B tier is the Indiana Pacers. That's play with that pace and that space, which also, again, ties into defense. In the C tier, we have the New York Knicks, the Golden State Warriors, and the Denver Nuggets. And in the D tier, we have the Lakers, the Heat, the Grizzlies, the Bucks. Any changes you would make?
No, I think we're solid with where we are.
I think the only thing I'd consider is moving the Knicks up to B tier, but I'm not passionate about it.
What would be your reason for moving them up?
Because I want to.
Okay, we can. It's more aesthetically pleasing.
It is definitely more aesthetically. There's also not that much of a difference between a C plus and a B minus. Unless you're my parents looking at my report card. Maybe we did have the same parents. You know? Okay.
Man, you can't say that to my mom.
No. Yeah, there were no C's in my household either. All right, let's get out of here with a super chat, and then we'll answer Suns Digest's question as well. Justin with a $10 super chat says, Suns should study and learn as much as they can from the Rockets' identity and culture, considering 3 of the Suns' top 6 or 7 players next season might be coming from that exact culture and identity. It's a good point.
That's a very good point.
That is,
I agree.
That is a good point. And then we have a question from Suns Digest saying,
I got it.
Oh, go ahead.
But I saw you want Cassell or Quinn for the Suns head coaching job. Eric and Steven, who would you like to see?
I know some other names are people like Royal Ivy, Johnny Bryant
I didn't see that part
amongst them. I like Royal Ivy and Johnny Bryant. I personally am a Chris Quinn guy. I'd be happy with any of the names there. Chris Quinn, Sam Cassell, Royal Ivy, Johnny Bryant, I think are 4 really good names. Personally, I'd go with Quinn, but I'm happy with any of those 4.
I'm happy with any of those 4. I still like Cassell most just because of the experience part and coming from Boston specifically more than anything. But after that, I think it's a tie for me between Quinn and Johnny Bryant.
I like it.
No wrong choices, though. Again, that's the space
there
you
might be. We
in.
just don't know what the wrong choices are. Definitely a lot still to unpack with all the front office moves today. If you missed the breaking news pod, it was us 2, plus, of course, Gerald, and, of course, Noah behind the Mac. No BComC, clearly super chats in that pod, though, so it's family friendly. Go back and you can watch that one, listen to that one. I'll have a trending podcast coming out here if you're watching live in about 50 minutes, just reacting to some of the fan responses from this move, so you can check that out. As well, we have so much more going on here at PHNX Sports. Diamondbacks, Cardinals, ASU, U of A, Mercury. Of course, you guys had a show yesterday. PHNX Rising. You can catch it all right here on PHNX Sports. Hit that subscribe button as well. We are so close. We are under 200 subs away from 40,000 subscribers. Help us get there if you haven't already. Become a diehard today. Go phnx.com/join. And we will be joining you guys again at 3 p.m. tomorrow. But until then, you can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. We appreciate Noah beeping and booping the day after his birthday behind the Mac. Of course, you can follow Steven at StevenPG3. You can follow me at ARIKRUBY. Make sure you follow at Gerald Bourget on socials to know when his newest article is dropping. That should be very, very soon if it's not up already. Again, go PHNX.com to read all of Gerald's work. But until tomorrow, take care and try not to freak out too much about the front office move.
We all silly like the mayor.